1 Samuel chapter 1. Let me first begin by explaining where we are in this text that we're reading today. In the previous two chapters, in chapters 19 and 20 of 1 Samuel chapter 21, the previous chapters to this, Saul is so fed up and angry with David because he is getting all the accolades of being the man while he is king. And David, this young whippersnapper, is in there. Everybody loves him. He's so pretty. He's such a strong warrior. Everybody's looking at him. Oh, he's greatest. He's the best. King Saul gets so angry that he intentionally, in his mind, I am going to pin David to the wall with this spear. That's angry. Now, Saul, if you don't remember, was a very tall person. They believed that he was somewhere in the 7 feet, not Goliath size, but somewhere around 7 feet tall. He was a good-sized individual. And he hurled the spear at him, missed. David runs. Jonathan, not knowing this, and David tells him, look, your dad's out to kill me. And he says, well, just go and hide. Let me go talk to Dad. Let me figure something out. Goes and finds out that it isn't true, in fact, that King Saul, Jonathan's dad, wants to kill David and is so very angry with him. Devises a plan, lets David know, hey, we're going to have this plan. You're going to go hide. I'm going to tell your dad that you had to go to Bethlehem and everything will be okay. Jonathan goes to King Saul and tells him this and says, David had to go to Bethlehem for a sacrifice with his family. And King Saul looks at him and says, you're a liar and you defame your mother and your birth. Bring him here because I'm going to kill him. So Jonathan leaves, goes in their secret plan to let David know, yeah, you need to run. King Saul ain't playing around. He wants to kill you. So Jonathan tells him, listen, you just need to go on the lam. You need to go hide, get away, get as far away as you can. As a matter of fact, give me all your weapons and everything. We're going to go take that so they can think that you're just gone. Don't even worry about it. He does. So David has nothing with him. And he leaves on Jonathan's orders. And that's where we pick up today. Now, I'm going to be going through this rather differently this morning as we're going to go through verse by verse because we will be doing the entire chapter. But I guarantee it's a lot of scripture. But we're going to get out of here on time, I promise. So don't think that I'm going to leave you here all day. Not like you have a football game to go watch. Right? Is it even football season? I don't know. I watch baseball. So, as we are in chapter 21 of 1 Samuel, beginning in verse 1 through 2. Then David came to Nob, to Ahimelech. Some of your copies may say Abimelech. The priest, and Ahimelech came to meet David trembling and said to him, why are you alone and not one with you? And David said to Ahimelech, the priest, the king has charged me with a matter and said to me, let no one know anything of the matter about which I send you and with which I have charged you. I have made an appointment with the young men for such and such place. Is that true? He lied. David is a liar. Growing up, I remember having a conversation with my dad because little boys do it, teenagers do it whenever they don't want to get in trouble. I wasn't there. I didn't do that, Dad. I didn't break the back window to the house. You're the only one at the house. Well, the cat must have jumped through it. There's a liar. And my dad used to tell me, God hates a liar. And so do I. So it was beat into me early on, not physically, but pounded into my brain, do not lie. But David here is a liar. He was going into hiding. He wasn't on a mission from Saul. He lied to a high priest. And he began a show, a stage performance, and has even given King Saul lines in this show. Was he instructed by God to go? Who was he instructed by? Jonathan. I didn't tell him to go anywhere. He was doing exactly what he decided and Jonathan decided to do. Is David acting on God's orders? Not even a little bit. Look at verse 3 through 6. Now then, what do you have on hand? This is David talking. Give me 5 loaves of bread or whatever is here. And the priest answered David, I have no common bread on hand, but there is the holy bread. If the young men have kept themselves from women, and David answered the priest, surely women have been kept from us, as always, when I go on an expedition. The vessels of the young men are holy, even when it is an ordinary journey. How much more today will their vessels be holy? So the priest gave him the holy bread, for there was no bread there but the bread of the presence, which is removed from before the Lord to be replaced by hot bread on the day it is taken away. The table of the presence, as soon as you walked into the temple of God, off to the right, you have the incense burner, and you have a platter made of gold and bronze, and everything's gold. You can see your reflection. It's gorgeous. And on your right, you have this table with the incense burning, the candelabra to the left of that, and you see a platter with hot loaves of bread that are the bread of presence that are offered to God alone. But at the end of the day, that bread is taken away. The new bread of presence is brought into there. They don't go into the holiest of holies. They go into there. The high priest would deliver this bread for God. So that's what's going on. David is asking for bread, asking for something to eat. They don't have common bread. We have God's bread. Since you're on the official duty of the king, you could have the leftovers from that. But did you see what was going on? A couple things. He has no food. He has nothing. And he's asking for the cold bread of the presence of God. But not only that, the priest is under the assumption that his guards are elsewhere. Does David say anything contrary to that? Does he say, oh, I'm alone? No. He goes on with it. He allows what the high priest has said and continues in this lie that he's now built up. He's lied again, deceiving the high priest to get something that is intended for holiness for his lie. Think of that. And he's developing this story that, oh yeah, the men that are with me are keeping themselves holy and pure. I mean, he is just digging in, right? But this lie is just going on and on. And he's making the priest believe that he is about the king's business. Telling the priest that he is about the king's business. David just plays along, but he's not done. Look at verse 7 through 9. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord. His name was Doeg, the Edomite, the chief of Saul's herdsmen. Then David said to Ahimelech, then have you not here a spear or a sword on hand? For I have brought neither my sword nor my weapons with me, because the king's business required haste. And the priest said, the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you struck down in the valley of Elah, behold, it is here, wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you will take that, take it. For there is none but that here. And David said, there is none like that. Give it to me. What business would a soldier, a general, a high-ranking official of King Saul have leaving and going anywhere without his entourage directly behind him and without a weapon on hand? You would think that the priest is most likely, as it said at the beginning, he's trembling. He's a little weirded out by this circumstance because why is David here all alone? With no weapons, no food, nothing. This is weird. And yet, he tells him about one of the greatest swords ever used in battle for David. It's a big weapon. And David, gave it to God as an offering. That's why it's behind the ephod. It's given to the temple of God as an offering of, look what I did for you, God, as he did. You remember with the stones and him planting one, embedding it into the head of Goliath. And he did that for God. And he gave God that sword and is now taking it back from God. Why is he doing this? knowing that there's someone there that can tattle on him, which in the next chapters, I encourage you to continue reading it, he actually does go back to Saul. The herdsman goes back to King Saul and says, hey, I saw David. He was down south of here. Enrages Saul, and that's what ensues the next several chapters where King Saul is pursuing David constantly because the man goes and tattles. But David knew he was in danger, needed a weapon, got the weapon that he gave to God. Sad that he is doing this. Why is he doing this? Why is he lying? He is further deepening the lie. And that he was so rushed on the king's business that he had no time for armament. He is digging himself into a grave that will cause so many problems for him. Verse 10 and through the rest of this chapter. And David rose and fled that day from Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. Question. Where was Goliath from? Gath. What is he carrying on his back? One of the largest swords ever seen in combat. Easily recognizable. Keep that in mind. And the servants of Achish said to him, is not this David the king of the land? Did they not sing to one another of him and say, Saul has struck down his thousands and David his tens of thousands? That's the very same issue that was going on that caused Saul to become so enraged at David. David took those words to heart and was much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he changed his behavior before them and pretended to be insane. Insane in their hands, and made marks on the doors of the gate, let his spittle run down his beard. Then Achish said to his servants, behold, you see this man is mad. Why then have you brought him to me? Do I lack madmen that you have brought this fellow to behave as a madman in my presence? Shall this fellow come into my house? David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul, gathered to him. And he became commander over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went from there to Mizpah of Moab. And he said to the king of Moab, please let my father and mother stay with you, till I know that God will do for me what God will do for me. And he left them with the king of Moab, and they stayed with him all the time that David was in the stronghold. Then the prophet Gad said to David, do not remain in the stronghold. Depart and go into the land of Judah. So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth. The greatest performance of his life is being given. Do you understand what it means for him to be insane in his hands? He's walking around shaking. He's standing on the walls, scratching, he's mumbling to himself. Just shaking. I'm not going to drool on myself. Not going to do that. Think of this. This whole facade, all these lies, and he culminates it into this act of craziness in front of everybody. Why is he doing this? Why is he behaving such a way? Much like Abraham lying about his wife being his sister to save their lives. And guess what happened? Caused even more problems. Wishing to save the lives of his own family, he asked King of Moab if they can stay there to be safe. He's departed to his cave, and because of everything going on, his family retreats and goes and hides with him. As a result of him leaving and just going out and doing all these things. So now his family's in danger. He's a liar. To understand Moab, y'all remember Moab? Who was famous from coming out of Moab? Ruth. Who is David's great-grandmother? Ruth. So he's going where it's familiar and somewhat safe for them. If you don't realize that Moab, whenever they came into the promised land a few generations before, a part of the Israelites settled in Moab. They said, God, let us just stay here. They got permission from God. They were allowed to stay there. They settled there. The rest of the children of Israel went on into the promised land and did their business there. So he's familiar with it. But then finally, David returns to the cave and is told by Gad, the prophet, to go into the land of Judah. Go back where you came from. Go back into the territory. Don't just stay here in the cave. Finally, God has been able to give him instructions because he stood still long enough to hear from God. All the lies, the ridiculousness. We finally see David gets his instructions from God through a prophet. David had lost his mind. The issue is not the lying. So I'm talking about all these lies. That's not the issue. You know what the issue is? What the big deal is? It's fear. Fear caused David to do all this. Fear caused him to lie to begin with and to bring Jonathan into a lie. Lying to a high priest, lying about the bread, lying about his soldiers, lying about having no weapons, lying about being on business of the king is fear. The problem is fear. What should he have done? As soon as Saul threw that spear at him, leave, God, what do I do? Instead, Jonathan, I have a problem. I need your help. Can you help me lie to your dad? Have you ever lied to your parents? And then later on just realize what you did? In my adulthood, look back, and I'm often thinking about the relationship with my father and realizing the problems that I ensued between he and I because of lying. Other teenagers, students, children, lying is not the answer. But that's not the issue today. It's fear and what it causes us to do. In this case, it made a sane man mad, crazy, goofy. Instead of asking God what he wanted to do. But let's find out what David actually said about this circumstance. So if you are taking notes in your Bible, I want to invite you to look at chapter 56 of Psalms, verse 1 through 4, and I have it up on the screen. But listen to what David says in regards to this whole situation. Listen to verse 1 through 4. This is to the choir master according to the dove on far off terebinths. That's just the title of this song. A miktam of David when the Philistines seized him in Gath concerning his madness and his goofiness. He says this, be gracious to me, O God, for man tramples on me all day long, an attacker oppresses me. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly when I am afraid. I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? David figured out how to respond only after. Only whenever he was in much later life did he realize what he should have done. And he goes back and creates this song for everyone else to hear. Put your trust in God. Don't be so quick to make a decision out of fear. He does not need to be afraid. David did a lot of dumb stuff because of fear. God's honest truth. We're human. We do dumb stuff out of fear. When we worry. And it can cause us more harm than anything. Joy is what's healthy for the heart. Fear, depression, anxiety, stress are a cancer to the heart. You want to cause yourself heart problems? Walk around scared, worrying about everything, paranoid. rather than trusting in God to take care of business as he has told us countless times that he will do. But that means that we have to communicate with him, talk to him. Fear leads to serious problems in the life of a godly person. Though a godly person we may be, but when we allow fear to take hold, it's going to damage you. It will. There are people in the world that are struggling with this issue of fear. We need to not jump at disliking what they're doing or the decisions that they made, but be quick and not be quick to put our 2 cents in. That's pride. We need to be about encouraging to seek and to fear God, not fear man. And whenever I say fear, that awe-inspiring, wow, he is the creator of all things. I need to have utmost respect for him because I know he's taking care of business and will take care of me. He is the only thing that can demand this type of fear. Not the things of this world. Pray for these people. Seek to minister to people that are in fear. Now, let me be clear, and I'll say this. We've covered it enough about the COVID-19 and all the stress and everything going on in the world, all the problems. And they're serious. But I will say there are, sadly, people that hide behind the idea of fear, who are not actually fearful. I'm staying home because of everything going on. If that is true, that's good. God gave us a brain to make good, wise decisions according to his word. And take precautions for that. But if a person is saying that everything, I'm not going to church, I'm not doing this thing because of fear of the virus, and it's not true, and yet they feel comfortable to go to events, family reunions, go to restaurants, go do all these other things, it's much safer to come here where we're spaced out and where we're enforcing that and the precautions of keeping safe. Encourage people for that. Encourage people if they are saying that they are doing something because of, well, the virus, but yet will go do these other things. And discourage that type of behavior and encourage to go where it's most likely a little bit safer. And I would say here, because I promise churches tend to be a little bit safer than a restaurant. We went to Casa Olay months back, and I'm paranoid watching my kids because they're putting their hands on the seat. Though they spray everything else, do they spray the seats? Do they spray the underside of the table where kids like to play and grab? I mean, there's stuff all around. But that is not fear. That's just, maybe people just don't want to. If that's the case, then encourage them to just say, I don't want to go, and not be like David. So that's to that point. But the issue that David has is not that the lie is not the main issue. It is fear. Fear can petrify. David is going to be content in his cave, not doing anything. It can cause inaction where God has called for action. Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. I have commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you part of the time. Here or there, but not there. Wherever you go. God is with you wherever you go. It can amplify problems. David has now brought his family into it. Now they're in danger because of fear. David must hide his family. You think of it, the wrong kind of fear can throw a wrench in your entire life if you allow fear to just run your life. There's a simple fix to fear. Fear God, not anything of this world. Look to him for guidance and ask him for what you need to do. Be honest. Think. When was the last time you have just actually asked God, is this the best decision that I need to make? Is this the best thing that I need to do? Do I need to do this? Or do we just, I'm going to go do this. I know God's got my back. God has been fighting for thousands and thousands of years for what? a relationship with him. You can't have a relationship being silent and not talking to the other. Husbands, survey question. How long do you think your marriage would last if you never talk to your spouse? Never communicating with them, never talking to them. I get in trouble if, in response to Haley, if I go, My wife requires words, and for JR to put on his big boy pants and say, yes, ma'am, whenever she asks me a question. Likewise, God expects us to have a relationship and communicate with him. God, do I need to take this trip? Do I need to do this? God, do I need to go here? God, do I need to get involved with this ministry? You know what? I don't feel comfortable talking in a group. You have now answered your question from your perspective. Rather than asking God, God, do you have it in for me to work in this ministry, to do this thing? Because here's the thing, your brain will tell you, no, because your brain is wired to go, no, I'm not comfortable doing this. Without ever asking God and him to tell you, be courageous, be brave, trust in him. When we do that, we can walk in life like David did after the events of the text today. Do you want to know what he felt like? Let's look at Psalms 34, and we will close with this. Close your eyes. I give you permission to close your eyes. Don't go to sleep, but close your eyes and just listen along. If you feel like you need to follow the text, it's up on the screen, but just listen to the words of David. Of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech so that he drove him out and he went away. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul makes its boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant, and their faces shall never be ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and deliver them. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. Oh, fear the Lord, you his saints, for those who fear him have no lack. The young lions suffer want and hunger, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, O children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. What man is there who desires life and loves many days, that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil, your lips from speaking deceit. Turn away from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. The eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, and his ears toward their cry. The face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to cut off the memory of them from the earth. When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. He keeps all his bones. Not one of them is broken. Affliction will slay the wicked, and those who hate the righteous will be condemned. The Lord redeems the life of his servants. None of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. Father God, thank you for allowing us here to